When I picked up the phone that morning, I had no idea that a single sentence could change everything I believed about love, family, and belonging. I had been waiting for weeks, wondering when my son Max and his fiancée Lena would finally set a date for their wedding. I was excited, nervous, and proud, all at once. I had picked out a pale pink dress, one that made me feel elegant but simple, like a mother who had done her best and was ready to watch her only son step into a new chapter of his life. I had even cleaned my entire house, top to bottom, thinking maybe after the ceremony they would come by.
And we'd sit together over tea and cake, laugh about old memories, and talk about the future. I had called my sister Diana in Chicago to tell her the news, and I had put aside $1,000 as a gift. And every night before bed, I imagined how happy Max would look standing next to his bride. But that morning, as I lifted the phone to call him, to ask casually when the big day would be, Lena's voice came through the line instead. Her tone was calm and controlled, almost rehearsed. "Oh, we already got married yesterday," she said. And then, after a tiny pause, a smile in her voice, "We only invited special people." I stood there, frozen. Special people! The words felt like ice water down my back. For 3 years, I had paid their rent, $500 every single month when they couldn't make ends meet. I had bought their furniture, their refrigerator, even the sofa they sat on. I had filled their kitchen when their cupboards were empty, paid bills when Max's paycheck didn't stretch far enough, and done it all without ever asking for anything in return, except love, respect, and a little space in their hearts. And now I was hearing that I was not one of the special people. I looked over at Max, who was sitting right there in my living room, his eyes fixed on the floor. Lena sat beside him, her legs crossed, looking perfectly comfortable on the couch I had bought. My fingers tightened around the phone. I tried to smile, to say something that wouldn't betray how much I was breaking inside. "Oh," I whispered. "Congratulations." Lena smiled again, this time a real smile, satisfied, victorious. "Thank you," she said lightly, as though she hadn't
Just driven a knife into my chest. Max finally looked up, his voice soft and uneasy. "Mom," he said, "it was just something small, really intimate, just us and two witnesses." But I knew it wasn't true. I had already seen the pictures that morning. Photos of the ceremony, the flowers, the friends, the laughter, Lena's family all dressed in white and gold. Everyone smiling. Everyone. Except me. I had seen it all on social media, though I hadn't said a word. I had hoped there was a mistake, that maybe there had been a misunderstanding. But now I knew there wasn't. My son had gotten married, and I hadn't even been considered worthy of an invitation. I walked into the kitchen, pretending to tidy up so they wouldn't see the tears filling my eyes. My hands shook as I put away the dishes. The silence between us grew thicker and heavier, until finally they both stood up to leave. "We'll come by again soon," Max said, not meeting my gaze. I nodded, forcing a smile that felt like glass cracking in my face. When the door closed behind them, I sank into a chair, and the quiet of the house swallowed me whole. That evening, I sat by the window where Max used to play as a child. I could still see him in my mind, his little hands gripping a toy car, his bright laughter echoing through the street. He used to run to me, calling, "Mom, look at me!" And I always did. No matter how tired I was, no matter how long my shift had been, I always looked. He was my entire world. When his father left us, Max was only 8. I remember holding him that night while he cried and promising him that no matter what, I'd never let him feel alone. We built our life together. 2 people against the world. I worked double shifts, cleaned houses, skipped meals so he could eat, and sold my jewelry once to buy him a laptop when he got into college. I didn't care about the sacrifices. Seeing him happy was enough. Every milestone of his life felt like victory we shared. When he graduated, when he got his first job, when he moved into his first apartment. And when he met Lena, I thought, finally, my boy has found someone to love him as much as I do. At first, she was sweet, polite, even affectionate. She called me Mom sometimes, brought me flowers on my birthday, and said she admired my strength. But slowly, little things changed. She stopped calling. She said Max was busy whenever I asked to visit. Holidays became excuses. They had plans, they were tired, or it's just too far this year. I didn't complain. I told myself they were young, building their life, figuring things out. I didn't want to be the mother-in-law who interfered. But little by little, I could feel myself being pushed out of my own son's life. And then came that day. The wedding I didn't know about, the celebration I wasn't invited to, the photographs that would never include me. For days afterward, I couldn't eat. I'd wake up in the middle of the night, remembering his face when he was a boy, how he used to kiss my cheek before bed. I'd ask myself over and over, what did I do wrong? Did I love too much? Did I give too much? Was I too involved, too present, too everything? But every time I replayed it in my mind, the same thought returned. I was never the problem. I was only inconvenient. I represented the years Max wanted to forget. The struggle, the small apartment, the secondhand clothes, the mother who worked too hard. And maybe Lena didn't want that part of his story and her perfect new life. That realization hurt more than anything else. One afternoon, about a week after the wedding, Max came by alone. He looked uncomfortable, holding a small box of leftover cake in his hands. "Lena thought you might like some," he said. I took it quietly, thanked him, and offered him coffee. We sat in silence for a few minutes before I finally asked, "Why didn't you tell me, Max?" He sighed, rubbing the back of his neck like he used to when he was a boy caught lying. "Mom, it just happened fast. We didn't want to make it a big deal." I looked at him, really looked at him, and realized I didn't recognize him anymore. His eyes were distant, his voice polite but detached. "You could have called me," I said softly. "Even a message." He didn't answer. The silence stretched again until he finally stood up. "I should go," he said. I walked him to the door. When he left, I didn't cry this time. I just felt empty. In the days that followed, I started to understand something I had never wanted to face. Sometimes love doesn't fade, it changes shape. It turns from warmth into something quieter, something that asks you to let go even when your heart screams to hold on. I began to take walks every morning. The world outside felt alive in a way I hadn't noticed in years. I started cooking for myself again, not because anyone was coming over, but because I deserved to eat something good. I went through old photo albums, pictures of Max as a baby, a teenager, a young man, and instead of crying, I started smiling. I realized that even if he forgot me, those years were real. The laughter, the hugs, the bedtime stories, all of it was real. No one could take those memories away from me. Months passed before I saw Max again. He came by one evening looking tired. "Lena's pregnant," he said. I congratulated him sincerely. His voice wavered a bit, maybe expecting me to be angry or cold, but I wasn't. I had already made peace with the truth. I couldn't control where life took him. "That's wonderful news," I told him. And for the first time in a long while, he smiled. There was something in that smile, a flicker of the boy I used to know. He asked if I wanted to come by once the baby arrived, and I nodded. though deep down I knew not to expect much. I had learned not to build expectations around people who had already shown me where I stood. After he left, I sat quietly by the window again. The sunset spilled gold across the sky. The same window where years ago I had watched Max play. My heart still ached, but it was softer now, like an old scar that no longer bled. I thought about the phrase Liana had used, special people. For so long, it haunted me. But now, I understood something she never would. Being special isn't about being invited to a wedding. It's about the love you give without expecting anything back. The sacrifices no one sees. The quiet strength that keeps you standing when your heart has been broken.
So if anyone were to ask me today, do you regret it? I'd say, no. I don't regret the nights I worked 2 jobs. I don't regret the money I spent on their rent or the groceries I bought when they couldn't. I don't regret the love I gave, even when it wasn't returned, because love, true love, is never wasted. It shapes us, teaches us, and reminds us that we can survive even the deepest wounds. I may not have been one of their special people, but I was the one who held Max's hand through every storm, who stood by him when he had nothing, who believed in him when the world didn't. That is what makes me special.
As I sit here tonight, the house quiet, the city lights glowing outside my window, I realize something simple but powerful. Sometimes letting go is an act of love too. You let them go so they can grow, even if it means they forget who watered their roots. I whisper a silent prayer for Max and Lena, wishing them peace, hoping they'll one day understand what it means to give without measure. Then I turn off the light, walk to my bed, and close my eyes. Not as a mother left behind, but as a woman who has finally learned that her worth was never defined by anyone else's invitation list.